But I'm going to go with Brian Schottenheimer from the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, man.
Wow.
He's doing a lot of good stuff. I'm shocking myself here. All my Cowboys love has been shocking me, but I just keep coming back to I even watched like 4 games last week just to go like, am I out turn here? My brain just off. Hello and welcome back to Football 301. I am your host, Nate Tice. Very, very fun. And I'll even throw out the special word out there episode for you guys today. I have a very fun guest, a familiar face, and dare I say, a buddy of mine to do the best play callers of 2026 draft. That is the Athletic Football Show's own Robert Mays. How you doing, buddy? Great to see you.
I appreciate you having me. I'm really looking forward to this. Making the rankings was excruciating.
Yes, it was.
You throwing in the wrinkle, because when you originally presented this to me, I was just thinking offensive play callers. Mm-hmm. And so throwing in defensive play callers into the mix really does throw a wrench into it. Like how you stack it up just totally changes. How you start tiering it totally changes. And so I enjoyed doing this. I enjoyed getting ready for this. I know that there are going to be mistakes that I make just because of some of the wrinkles that are thrown. There are names that are not in my top 12 that I'm horrified by. But when you actually only rank 12 guys on offense and defense, there are people that you're going to have to leave on the cutting room floor that you don't feel very good about.
Or you have a head coach benching himself for a new play caller in one case in Denver, which was like, how do I rank that?
Yeah.
That was another little screwball in there. I even threw it out to you. I just because, I think anyone knows that when me and Robert would be together, it's kind of a sicko show. But I even said special teams coaches too, if you want to throw one out there. And honestly, I tried to have that hipster take, and I couldn't justify having that in the top 12.
Spoiler alert: I do not have any special teams coordinators in my top 12 play calling rankings, because even if it was coordinator rankings, maybe that would be easier to do. But play calling is just like, are you really dialing up your beaters in the special teams world? I guess sort of now with the kickoff returns. But
I guess you can. Yeah, I know. Maybe we'll put a pin in that. We'll come back in a year from now and draft special teams coordinators and special teams play callers. And it used to be easy. 10 years ago, I'd just go, oh, Dave Tobe, done.
Number one with the bullet every single year.
Now it's like, the one name special teams coach I could have just always thrown out there. But yes, we're going to be drafting these play callers, offense and defense, head coaches included as well. But it's just whoever calls plays on their side of the ball, and we're just going to rank them. We'll go 6 each, so 12 total. Robert's going to bat first, but we'll be alternating those picks, and we're just doing it for this for this season. But really, I think it's just fun talking out these guys, and I think there's some established names, maybe ascending names that were really maybe cool in their first year of play calling, or just someone that we're high on. So, Robert, now that the table has been set, as you like to say, the table setting has been commenced. How about you break the bottle on this draft class, or this draft class of coaches and play callers?
I'll take Sean McVay.
Okay, that's kind of that's. I mean, come on. If you didn't, I would have.
Yeah, it's for so many different reasons, and I think that you could take this a bunch of different directions. I've had the privilege of being able to talk to Sean about football a lot over the last 5-10 years, since he got the job in LA. And I think that there are 2 things that really stick out to me about what makes Sean special as a play caller. And also this is, I asked you before we started doing this, I also think this is just offensive architects, right? Like the figurehead at the front of the offense. So it's not just like play calling acumen situationally, but how are you building the offense? How are you putting it together? And I think that there are 2 things that really have stuck out to me about him in both talking to him, watching him, and even talking to people on their staffs over the years. I think Sean's ability to understand where the game is going offensively and defensively is pretty unparalleled. And, there are coaches you talk to every summer, and they'll lay out to you where they think the sport is headed and what their team needs to do in order to keep pace with that. You kind of nod along, and at the end of the day, none of it will come true. None of it will end up mattering. None of it will be relevant. You'll see none of it play out. And Sean has a really uncanny ability to predict the future in that way. And very few guys can do it. And I think that his evolution is always in line with where the sport is going, and it's often driving where the sport is going. Obviously, this offseason with all the tight end stuff, that's the most recent example, but he has shaped the game over the last 10 years in a way that really nobody has. And the other side of it that I would say, I think Sean has a better understanding of himself and his offenses than anybody else in the league. what their tendencies are, what the tendency breakers are. How can I make this look like that? Every bit of evolution is not about chasing where the league is. It's about taking his ideas and bringing them to the next stage of where they should be. Yes. And so I think those two things, understanding the arcs of the NFL and understanding how to bring his stuff toward that while not relying on maybe what other people are doing. I don't think anybody does those two things quite as well as he is doing them right now.
I think of all people to maybe illustrate or kind of maybe just a microcosm of what Sean McVay does for his players. And I think the number one compliment I can give to any coach is their players play the best of their ability when they're under that coach. You see it with offensive line coaches all the time. You see it with defensive coordinators, yada, yada. Coleman Shelton is the guy that maybe best illustrate how good of a coach Sean McVay is. I know Sean McVay is not coaching O-line, but he has a big influence on what they do. And Coleman Shelton was good with the Rams, goes to the Bears, not so good, and then goes right back to LA, and he's solid again. At the very least, a starting center that you're fine with. And I just think that's the thing is I'll get into maybe just the changes and the evolution and just the small changes he'll make with his offense, the big changes he'll make with the offense, the willingness to make those changes. You know how hard it is to have success and then just go, well, that was last year. We got new page. We got to just tear out. Okay, we can keep that small part of the page, but we got to write a whole new page. That's really hard to do. You have to have so much confidence in yourself to be right. And I think McVay's done it 3 times. It's kind of, if you want to just have broad swath evolutions going from the tight formations, the 11 personnel to the Stafford empty. I mean, that was right when you and I started podcasting. We're just like, this is completely different. He's in empty every single play. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And then there was kind of like a mini Stafford, kind of like they're trying to figure it out. And then now we get the duo and we get the kind of the new version, the 13 personnel kind of pivot as well. And so I have no qualms with this pick. This probably would have been mine. If it wasn't 1, it would have been 2. Because just like you mentioned, it's just he's at the tip of the spear of where the league is going. And that's why it's so fun for me to like kind of keep tabs on what he might change for the next year. And, you know, whether it's going back to under center, they experimented with pistol and he was like, yeah, we're going to go fully back under center. Okay. Like that was a little 1-year experiment he tried to do with a bunch of pistol, you know, it's like just little changes and it's fun to watch and keep tabs on what he does and what he changes and now having data on it and just success and I mean, performance and different personnel just working out for him. Davante Adams getting there, becoming like a designated hitter in the red zone, like just using these guys to the best of their ability. So yeah, I have so much respect for Sean McVay, and I know people roll their eyes, like, oh, they hate the wonderkin coaches and they want them to drop off. But it's like with him, it's so warranted because it's so out there and it's so prevalent when you watch the Rams year in and year out. You
can trace the arc of the sport to what his offenses have looked like over the last 10 years. It's very easy to do that. And I would encourage people, you know, that are, if we're like fully going sicko mode here and you have access to some of these numbers, the return to under center play action for the Rams this year, but how different it looked compared to what the play action stuff was when they first started doing it. And I think that to me is an expression of where the league is. Like you can't have these like big crosser explosive like beaters off play action anymore. That's not what it is. Like it's you're running. Those sorts of plays are one of the reasons that we've transitioned to the meta that we have on defense. And so now a lot of their play action stuff is it's underneath. It's really effective completions. It's a lot of like tight end screens. It's just, it's ball control play action rather than explosive play action. And I think, again, that just speaks to where the sport has kind of come to in this moment. And his ability to have a finger on that pulse is just remarkable.
Even just talking to Barnwell too, is that I could tell he's fascinated by the protection stuff. Because when we did the show you like to do with the Final Four teams, you know, what is the kind of, the common trends between them. And we talked about protections then. I just did a show with Barnwell. He talked more about protections. I could tell he's fascinated by it because I think that's a great example. The Rams, it was a lot of faking zone to do bootlegs or move the pocket. And now they're faking duo, which is a different type of action and a different type of protection with it. But I've seen all these other Shanahan teams still doing the zone one. And then he's like, well, that's fine. But we run duo. So I got a fake duo now and I got to make the protection work off of that. So watch him against, I think the Seahawks games are the best way to illustrate the differences of that. If you watch the playoffs and watch on first and second down, those big plays, Stafford was attacking down the field, just watch the action of the quarterback in the O-line. And I think kind of just really illustrates it, but great pick. I was trying to look up what the formation width was back in 2018 for the Rams. Last year's 20.9 yards. But I was trying to just illustrate again, like the difference in just formation width of this offense from how tight it used to be to now how kind of just a little mixed, I would say, is the best way to put it, but still plenty of action and everything. All right, I'll get to my number 2 pick. That's
I'm
Kyle
so
Shanahan.
interested in what you're going to do with this.
Kyle Shanahan.
Okay, all right.
I'm leaving you
I
a very juicy one.
Well, now you put me in an impossible situation with the next picks. But okay, explain your Kyle Shanahan choice and why.
Okay.
Why he comes next, even though there's a lot of other hot names that I think you could at least make an argument for.
Yes, and that's the thing. And hot names on the other side of the ball,
yes.
I might add you. That's what was hard for me. Watch what he did last year and the injuries and still had a top 10 offense. Like it was nothing. Top 2 and top 3 in some metrics. Mac Jones.
Brock and Mac were number 1 and 2 in passing success rate per next gen. They were 1 and 2.
Kendrick Bourne and Jake Tonjes and an O-line that I would not recommend for anybody. And he gets it done.
Though we have to take that into account. He wants it this way.
It's my biggest qualm with him. It's like, please just let me draft you a guard. Let me draft you some pedigree. I know Dominic Pooney, he's pretty solid, but it's like, can I just draft you a guy?
I took him in the 3rd round. That's all you're getting.
That's it. Like one top 100 pick. That's it. That's it for the O-line. I know, but he makes it work. He does so. I think that's what he fascinates me. He does so much that's against my football dogma, and it works so well and so beautifully because I'm just all about O-line, all about quarterbacks being superheroes, and he's just like, well, I'll just make it easy on him and watch this, watch this play a dial up. And something I haven't, I know Kyle from our days in Atlanta, and I'd say maybe like once in a while, it's like, oh, hey, at the not the combine, but I see him just, hey, what's up? But it's just one of these things I want to ask him is if you watch, because Kyle Shanahan has a receiver background originally, and how he has the routes. His route tree is different than other teams' route trees. There's a lot of kind of multiple breaking routes where the quarterback or the receiver or tight end starts out and then whips back inside, or it's a corner route that then just stops and hinges back. Other teams run what's called a cop route, but he does that, and he did it first. And he was the one, we're talking about knowing where the league is going. He was the first guy, and I don't think people recognize this because Shanahan's tied in usually with the run game, the play action stuff. He was the first guy I noticed that broke match coverage rules with the routes that he designed. That were his staple, quote unquote, routes. They weren't specialist routes, and they still work because it just, like say just an example here, a corner and certain match coverages, they'll make an under call, it's called. And they're just telling if a receiver runs a 5-yard in route or slant route or in something in breaking and underneath, they go under, and then they fall off. He will have that route run under and then whip back out. Mm-hmm. So then it's taking advantage of that defensive call that corners make. That's just one example I'm going to bring up. But just on top of that, the production he has, I think he's gotten, and actually just a tip of the cap to McVay, gotten a little more aggressive on 4th down. That's another thing, how McVay has evolved his game to the times.
100%, especially last year.
Yeah, and I just think Kyle, as a team builder, there's some stuff I always squint at. You can talk about his running back picks, all that stuff. But it's just a play caller and getting the most out of his guys from ever since I've watched him or call a play since Houston to Cleveland to Atlanta to now San Fran. It's just always been like this. On top of all the high end offenses that, if everyone's healthy, it's a top 5 locked in offense. That you can put. And
if they're not, it's top 7.
Yeah, it's never going to fall off. He's never going to go below top 10. It really is just no matter what. So I just have to give it to him, even if I did get tempted, especially with the defending Super Bowl champion head coach. That was the only other guy that I considered maybe in this. I kind of had a clear top 3, and then I had a clear top 6. That's kind of how. So McDonald would have been, this is my top 3. So yeah, cards on the table, Shanahan, McVay, and McDonald are my top 3 play callers. And then it goes to like a top 6. That's like a tier 1B, I guess.
I will fully admit that I am not a reliable narrator here, but I had a top 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I had a top 4 with one specific person involved, which we'll talk about here in a second.
I'm sure we will.
The Shanahan stuff is, you laid out so much of it, but to me, he uses space better than any other offensive coach in the NFL. And McCaffrey's such a huge part of that. Like if you look at just the percentages of, we talked about this last week on our show, the percentages of their total dropbacks that involve 5 guys out in the route, it's like almost 80% of plays. And there isn't a quick and easy way to determine who leads the league in that. But if you do some like back of the napkin math, I'm pretty sure they did. And if you just watch the distribution of certain routes and how they're straining defenses consistently when they get those 5 guys out, the spacing is incredible. I think that, and this is a double-edged sword because obviously he has a huge role in personnel and that's been a mixed bag, like you said. I'll caveat it this way. When we know that a guy is a viable NFL player, right? So post-draft analysis into picking the guy. But when we know he's developed into a viable NFL player, I don't think there's anybody else that understands how to use his receiving personnel better than Kyle does. Like these specific routes that guys are on, the roles they play within the offense. And sometimes he can have a hard time projecting that from college to the NFL. But as soon as he gets a guy and he's like, all right, he's an NFL player. Like I just think about what Pearsall gives them compared to like what a Kittle is and what Juszczyk is and the perfect ways he uses McCaffrey, like even like the Demarcus Robinson stuff they got from last year. Like I just think he's so good at that. And then the last thing, I mean, this goes back way to the start of his career. He understands defensive rules better than I think any offensive coach does. And he started in the defensive meeting rooms. Like when he was in Tampa for the first time, he was working, he would just sit there in the back of the room watching Monty teach defense. And so I think he just has such a good understanding of what those rules will look like, how I can snap them over my knee. And then you combine that with just how well done so many elements of the offense is. Yeah, it's hard to argue with the body of work and with what he's still doing. Like he's still throwing heat pretty consistently.
And making tweaks to his run game that kind of are more subtle than like drastically going from zone to duo. You know, it's the leading into certain, you know, Zorro's one of them, but just leading into different motions. There's years where he was running more trap because he was trying to change up the run game a little bit. So it's just all those things that he can do. And I love how you said uses space and timing. And like just those CMC motions that they do, the little island motion, I don't know how else to put it, where they kind of he's in the backfield, they split out.
Little bumper motion.
Yeah, bumper motion. I call it the Squidward motion, whatever you want to call it. But even those are just to change the timing of the route. It's to get to a certain depth of CMC speed that's not typical. It's like, all right, we want to get you to 8 yards or 10 yards on this route, but we want to time it up with this other route and create that space. So I'm glad you brought that up. Also, I meant to ask you a question. Do you have any theories on where McVay maybe his change for this year? Because mine is tempo. That's my theory.
I think tempo is part of it. I think tempo is a really good one. I'm curious, and somebody else mentioned this to me, and you kind of alluded to it. Are we going to get wider? Are things going to get a little bit wider so we just have a little bit more clear, like a little bit of a clearer picture for the offense? I think you've already seen that with the best quarterbacks in the league, just to give them a little bit more information. Like the condensed stuff, I think it's an easy button for we're trying to lift the quarterback up within the offense. If we think the quarterback can be a little bit, if we think the quarterback can do a little bit more of that lifting, do we want to give him a clearer picture so he can identify a few more things pre-snap? I think seeing formations get wider for the first time in a while, I do not think would be surprising to me this year.
That's kind of what I think too. It's like, all right, if they want you to play this way, and again, and I think quarterbacks should be pushing the ball more this year down the field. It's if they want us to play like this, then we should do this. Like you should do the things the defense doesn't want you to do. We don't want you to attack deep. All right, let's attack deep. All right, that's if they're trying to limit us that way. So same thing, and I think that's a great call. If they are going to play this umbrella coverage, I'll call it, and just be really top down on everything. Well, let's spread them out horizontally and just create islands and create space. So I think that's a great point as well. All right, number 3 for you in the play caller draft, because I think, are we dipping to the dark side now? I think
we have to. I know.
I got a couple great candidates here.
This is probably between McDonald and Ben Johnson for me, with like the guys who are still left.
I'm tapping my nose right now because that's.
But I think at this point, I think Ben Johnson, what he's done across multiple offenses, like even like the little tiny differences between what their offense was last year compared to what it was in Detroit. Like he just has such a good handle on that kind of stuff. We'll dig into it, but I think at this point, almost out of respect, I'm going to go with Mike McDaniel at 3. Like
I know.
He is, talking to offensive coaches about him. Right. And I think even from my chair, you're better at seeing this than I am. I know my little purview of knowledge is so small compared to the guys who are playing against these people every single week. And so I really like to tap into that when it comes to just general conversation, but especially stuff like this. It's like, who's better than I think he is? Like, who's hard to go against? And when you talk to offensive coaches about McDonald, like there's one OC I was talking to a couple weeks ago, he's just like, it's not even close. Like, it's not even close. And another guy, another offensive play caller I was talking to used like a very, very vulgar phrase about like, if you are not on your stuff, this is what happens to you. Like when describing Mike McDonald, and just how his ability to pick up on every little thing, whether it's formational, situational, like every bit of information, if you're going to dangle it out there for him, he's going to use it against you. And I think that, combined with just how in line with every element of the defensive meta he is, every single defensive coach I talked to this offseason studied their blitz patterns and a lot of the stuff that they were doing on third down. Like, it is not an accident. 2 of the 3 best blitzing teams of the next gen era when it comes to success rate, maybe EPA per drop back on blitzes. The 2023 Ravens are number 1, and the 2025 Seahawks are number 2 or number 3. One of those Browns teams is in the mix, like the Jim Schwartz Browns teams. But McDonald has 2 of the top 3. That is not accidental, right?
Right.
And then the last thing is just watching what that defense was with Ty Okada and Drake Thomas.
I was about to bring up Ty Okada, yeah.
And just they're watching like those coverage, like when their ability in coverage to just like melt things back and forth between each other, no matter who's on the field, is incredible. Like, that stuff is just clearly taught so incredibly well, whether it's him, Carl Scott, people on the staff. Like, it's amazing how they just don't lose a step when it comes to pattern recognition, how to pass stuff off, make sure we're never covering space, no matter who's out there. Like, every element of who they are defensively just doesn't skip a beat. The personnel was awesome, but even when the personnel leaves a little bit something to be desired, they still were the best defense in the NFL last year. And I just think that's incredible.
It's crazy because I'll watch them on defense, and you mentioned those guys, Ty Okada and like Drake Thomas, I could put more highlight plays of Drake Thomas than I'll watch a star for another defense, and they don't have as many plays that I'm like willing to clip and post. And it really is because, I mean, I think the Super Bowl is the best example of it. But really, there's multiple examples. The Rams gave them so much issues because they did the one thing that they're like, you have to do. You have to throw into the teeth of the defense. And that's really hard to do if you don't trust what's getting called or the guy running the route at the right spot. And watching how far their defenders push back into the routes and then run all the routes for the receivers. I mean, these guys jump into this. That's why Drake Thomas became this unbelievable hook defender. It's like, for the season, I consider myself a football nerd. Drake Thomas, I was like, I'm like, Drake Thomas, sure, get through a couple of weeks with him starting, we'll see what happens. And all of a sudden, he has highlight play and like teach tape plays because he's just running the dig route and getting into the space, and like that comes with amazing opponent scouting. It's when you have the whole back 7 playing like Fred Warner and running the routes and the high lows. It's impossible to go against unless you just hit haymaker after haymaker like the Rams had to do, or Cam Ward had to do, or even Baker had to do. And that's a high wire act like that, because that can go very wrong very quickly. And you watch the Super Bowl and you're talking about just more than opponent scouting. And I keep ragging on this because it stood out to me so much. Was I thought Doug Marrone and the offensive line game plan, the protection plan for the Patriots, was they got depanced.
Yeah,
like Mike McDonald.
That's kind of what I mean. If you give them an inch, he's going to take a mile every single time.
Everything. Yeah, it was like, oh, what's that? Another 6-man protection? Okay, we'll just do this. We'll overload this side. Boom, we got 2 free runners. Okay, next third down. All right. Oh, another static. Okay, all right. We'll just do the same simulated blitz. We're only bringing 4, and we got a free runner off of it. Like that's annoying. And especially when it just works every single time. And on top of it, every single guy just plays to their fullest ability. And Nick Manowari plays like a vet halfway through the year, and I thought he was be a project. And the guys like Ernest Jones is smart. He's better against the run. He can't really run. but he's in great coverage lanes because he's so aware what the routes are going to be. And
he's long and he knows where he's supposed to be. He knows where he's supposed to be.
You know how you play fast is your mind is really fast and knows what's about to happen. That's how you anticipate stuff. So we did our defensive player of the draft, and whether this was fair or not, Deontay Lee and I, we had no Seahawks in our top 16. We had a lot of honorable mentions like Byron Murphy and Devin Witherspoon, and we love all these players, but none made top 15, top 16. That kind of awesome that they had this kind of an all-time defense with no clear-cut elite guy at the position, maybe very, very good. I think Witherspoon and all those guys are. Murphy is, and of course, Manowar is going to get there. DeMarcus Lawrence is very good at what he does. Leonard Williams is very good. But I think that just speaks to just what Macdonald does. He just makes all these guys so much better on top of their own talent that they already have.
And I think overall, the fact that, and we talked about Okada, and like obviously, you know, he's going to play this year, but he played last year mostly because of injury. But when they're fully healthy, and when they were fully healthy last year, even if there are no A+ players, there are no C- players either.
Yes. Yeah.
And that I think is truly a testament to how they built their roster. The fact that it's so deep, so multifaceted. The fact that a guy like Derek Hall, who I really like, can be your fourth edge player.
Yes.
I think it really does speak to just what they put together there. So the depth and the flexibility, I think, is what shines through, even if the high-end talent may not be quite the same as a defense like the Texans, right? Like we'll talk about that, I'm sure. Like, what do you do with Matt Burke when you got like 6 aliens, you know, like how do you weigh those two things? And McDonald's got a lot of good players. There are fewer aliens on the Seahawks defense.
It's it's not totally fair, but it's kind of my Cowboys offense theory. It's like, no starter here is worse than a B. this could be really freaking good this year. It's kind of the same thing. They have a little more star power, obviously, with the receivers and Dak a little bit too, and some of the linemen. But it's like the same kind of thing. Like there's no C+ here, like starting for this team. So I'm glad you brought up all those players. You know, Derek Hall as well, who just got paid on top of it. Maybe I'm just stalling for my next pick. All right, number 4, because I said I had a clear top 3 and then I had a clear top 6, I would say. And number 4, I will go to Ben Johnson because he's after my own heart. He calls football a lot like how I like to see football being called.
Jabs and haymakers.
Oh my God. It's exactly, it is all, that's all it's all about. It's all about the explosives. And just generating them, not only just, and it's not just philosophy or theory, or it's not just him just saying it. Like everyone wants to be explosive. It's like, no, he's calling the plays, and the whole entire offense is to generate big plays. And it's not just gadgets or anything like that. It's very sound football. All the run plays are extremely sound. All the plays off of that are extremely sound. There's never a time I watched that Bears offense last year, and really the Lions before that, I was like, what was that? Like, what? You're leaving that guy unblocked? Well, you got 2 routes doing that? Like, why aren't you attacking this part of the field? Everything Johnson called, and also just how he evolved the offense last year. If you just looked at Johnson just in 2025, just watching how he evolved it with the Bears personnel, and once Colson Loveland got healthy, once Luther Burden was able to add more to his plate, once he realized what the offensive line strength was, which is a lot of zone, once he realized a lot of zone runs, DeAndre Swift, whether that was Eric Bieniemy or Ben Johnson, DeAndre Swift had his best season ever, most consistent season ever as a runner. That has to speak to a little bit about the coaching. I would even say a guy like a vet like Cole Kmet was probably his most consistent he's ever been. I've always thought he was a kind of an inconsistent player at times, surprisingly. I thought he had his most consistent year when he was out there. Yes, and you could say, they got some O-line health. I even mentioned the quarterback. You can mention the O-line health, all that, but that also speaks to Ben Johnson going like, well, juice up our O-line, because that's what's going to help us succeed. So we're talking about philosophy.
There's also some revisionist history with that. People destroyed the Jonah Jackson trade when it happened.
I know.
They destroyed it when it happened. And then now he was a second team All-Pro, and it's just kind of like, we all knew that was going to happen. It's like, no, we don't have to pretend like that was the response.
I think the scary part is now everyone goes, well, now he's going to be healthy again.
Well, that's the problem.
What would you bet on? Him being not healthy or being healthy again for the first time ever 2 seasons in a row? So that's a scary part too. No, you're absolutely right. He was a former Athletic Football Show breakout player candidate. So Jonah Jackson. So shout out to I think us in 2021 or 22.
The
Shout out
talent
Jonah
is
Jackson.
undeniable, right? I mean, like, we've seen him be a really good player, but like to watch that, the right side of the line, period, and like their ability to weaponize the right side of the line, and obviously like Dahlman's skill set is, I mean, even though this offseason is so funny, they got to type at center, huh? they got to type at center.
Does Iowa have an available center? They do. So come on down. We're gonna run some more zone.
It's really funny just watching the offseason happen, and you think, oh man, what sort of help do they need on defense? Where are they going to go out and seek out? And obviously they drafted Thieneman in the first round, but the idea that on day 2 it was like, nope, we're double down at center. We're getting another tight end. Like he's just come hell or high water. We're going to do exactly what we want to do offensively.
For those 3 tight end looks, because theirs is different. And that's another thing. It's not just 13 personnel. It's just not like 3 receivers are built the same. When you're 11 personnel, it's like their version is going to be really cool because it's burly and athletic.
You'd hope. And I mean, we'll see what Roush
theory,
is, right? But it was funny. I was talking to a defense coordinator about this like 2 days ago, and we were just talking about 13 personnel and like not letting offenses trick you, right? Essentially, not letting offenses try to convince you of one thing when they're really trying to do another. And so with 13
focus
personnel,
on intent as opposed to the picture.
Well, the number 13, don't let that be what you're reacting to. React to situation, react to these specific players, react to their skill sets.
And that's what a lot of play callers have to learn, is like, because they're just taught in a certain way, and they realize, it's more variables are a part of this rather than just personnel. So
I think for defensive coaches that we'll talk about here as we keep going, like that to me is one thing that I think I really did account for in the back half of my rankings, where it was which defensive coaches are not getting the wool pulled over their eyes when it comes to they're dictating the way the game is being played to me, who is really pushing back against that situationally and how they're matching certain personnel. But what this defensive coach said, and I 100% agreed with this, is that when you're in 13 personnel, you kind of got 3 archetypes of tight ends. You have the glorified tackle, who is never going to do anything. You have the glorified receiver, who is a field stretcher. And I think in a lot of these situations, that guy is necessary. Like the Rams 13 works because Terrence Ferguson's skill set is what it is, but
because you need verticalness.
But you also have to understand like what he can't do if he's doing that for you. And then you have one kind of jack of all trades guy. In the best case scenario, the Bears have 3 guys who can kind of do a little bit of everything. And so that's when it expresses differently than a lot of other teams who have these tight ends that you have to pigeonhole into these like very specific roles. But I mean, you're not going to hear any pushback from me. Like I think that watching, my understanding, and Cole Kmet said this publicly for the first time recently, but I had something that I'd heard from people. He does the run game installs. It's his thing.
Okay. Johnson's.
Yes.
No. I learned that last year too. I didn't know that either. Yeah.
So he does the run game like it's his thing. And in Detroit, he had more of a hand in it than I think people realized. And obviously,
really rare.
If there's a head coach, the fact that the head coach is the person who's like spearheading your run game is just, that's
extremely rare.
He's a different beast. He's just a different beast. And I know. I thank my lucky stars every day. Every single day.
How about we just did all that? Never mentioned Caleb Williams once.
I know.
That's because that's how good Ben is, and I think Caleb is ascending, of course, but just it's just his understanding of personnel and what you mentioned with the kind of 2-way tight ends, like the Rams with Colby Parkinson. Like if I had 3 Colby Parkinsons, oh my God, like I could do anything I want.
If you had 3 Colby Parkinsons that were a little bit smaller but also a little bit more explosive,
you can do anything. You could be
cooking.
Yeah, and that's what it's so cool to watch the Bears last year is they'll get, when they went to heavy personnel, they'll have Colson Loveland wind up as a receiver. And that's what I loved in Detroit. And I talk about this Matt Harmon all the time, is one of the coolest things I thought he did was Amon-Ra St. Brown's a burly power slot. Sam Laporta is kind of a Tino, kind of a tight end in name only. He's a below average blocker, but he's athletic and he can split outside. All right, let's inverse him. So Laporta is now the split out receiver, and now St. Brown's the tight end spot. That's just, and they can run the same concept, and it just looks different to the defense because they're like, tight ends out, tight ends out 1, okay. It blows their mind, and I can just run my core concept, but I just did enough window dressing using my personnel to kind of create another explosive. So
that's why Loveland is just such a weapon. I mean, it's crazy.
Loveland's awesome. But my favorite Ben Johnson line before we go to break was someone asked him about the tush push, and he said that I don't ever see a QB sneak go for an explosive. I was just like, yeah, baby. It's like, this is my guy. On the way. Why get one when you get 20?
He is an absolute psycho. And
the best way possible.
I fully support every single bit of it.
Talked to another Bears fan. I said, he doesn't blink, and I mean that in the best way possible. Watch him in an interview. He does not blink, and I that's awesome. It could go Adam Gase, or it could turn out like this. Like those are the two sides of the coin of when a coach doesn't blink. Nick Saban was the same way. But
the last thing I'll say about him is that I think
just keep going. I know.
Well, I think the last thing that's important for me is just that when you talk to guys that have worked for people, it can be a mixed bag. You know, like there's some times where you expect to hear these glowing reviews and that's not what happens. And I think that for people that have worked for him and that currently work for him, every single thing I've heard is just the immense amount of respect that people have. And I think he's really good at making sure you're creating buy-in among your offensive staff because you're allowing them to be creative. And I think that for him, there's like a meritocratic element of like how they build things and what ideas are accepted and where they can come from. And I think that he just does such a good job, whether it's by setting the example of like how we're going to work and how we're going to think, but also just making sure he's bringing everyone along with him. Because I think that was part of the question about whether he could do this, is that his ability to delegate was something that people really had questions about coming out of Detroit. And so his ability to kind of find this middle ground of I am the head coach and I have to do everything the head coach has to do, but I'm creating an environment where the staff is doing a lot of the lifting I couldn't do before, where we're still getting the same results. I think he's done a really, really good job of that in a way that people had questions about.
And that's really hard for guys to do who have made it this far because they have so much input on everything and they have their thumb on everything. Their fingerprints are all over every aspect that when they get to the top position, it's hard to delegate, as well as using why I got to that position was my play calling, my organization. And God, I know we just keep little side stories keep coming up here, but it's like even his introduction video at Hollis Hall and how human he came across. And I was like, oh, this guy has a chance. Because I've seen so many wunderkinds and so many play callers over the years that are just so amazing at that. But as soon as they get to the top seat, all their ability goes away because they don't have that human element. They don't have that communication ability, that organizational ability. And like you said, I've heard nothing but respectful things about him. Only like quote unquote negative, what it could be is that he's intense. But it's like one of those things where now but he has results, so it's good. You know,
that's
it's like that's need. The own. If you can, the head guy, that's what I want. I don't want my head guy being lackadaisical and missing on details and everything. Like, no, I'd rather have intense than that.
As soon as there's proof of concept, now you can be intense because now you're showing guys like I'm being intense because I'm going to get you paid.
Yes,
and it's pretty easy to keep going down that road.
You heard Amon-Ra St. Brown in his interview when he was talking about alignment, and he was just like, he goes, oh, he's a stickler on it, but he's like, hey, man, he gets the most out of it. And I was like, yeah, because he got the buy-in, like, hey, do this, and this will work. Watch. All right. Speaking of working, this pod's working. This is great. It's like we used to do this together. All right, we're going to take our first break, and we'll come back with picks 5 through 8 in the play caller draft. See you guys in a sec. All right, we are back with the middle third of our play caller draft. Robert, you are on the clock. Who you got?
I have a lot of defensive guys stacked up here. I had a
defense
top 4 that I had 3 offensive guys in McDonald. So that was kind of like a top 4, draw a line under it. My next collection of people under that is I actually had a lot of defensive guys in this next range. I'd say I'm probably picking between 2 people here. And it's very different stylistic choices that I could make.
Okay.
Right? One is like as sound, sturdy, just as hard to unpack as possible, and that's why it's hard to play against them. The other guy is the exact opposite of that. There's nothing sound or sturdy about anything that's happening.
All right. One's Flores?
Yes.
Okay. And then one is, I think one of the other 2 guys could be mine. It's like Fangio or Minter, one of those 2?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
So,
okay. Those are my next 3.
Those are my next 3. Those are literally, those are the 3 guys that I'm talking about. Those are my next 3 in my rankings.
Flores are my next 3. So yeah, okay.
That's exactly what I have. Okay. I'm going to go with Fangio.
Okay. That was 5 for me.
It's obviously less showy than some of the other defensive coaches that you could pick. I mean, that's just the nature of the beast. But in talking to offensive coaches about him, he's the other name that comes up that would like touch what McDonald is just in terms of how hard they are to play against. And, Vic has done I remember talking to a defensive coach that had worked with him last summer, because it's a little bit, we're talking about Spags, or when you're talking about Flores, and you want to express to somebody what makes them special as defensive coaches, you could pick out 100 examples, right? Like, it's very overt. And with Fangio, it's less overt. And so I was talking to somebody on the staff last year in Philly, and I was like, just explain to me why you think that he's good at this, just like on a very baseline level. And I think, this, so much of how offenses plan for defenses are rooted in the history of that defensive coordinator. It's like, we're going back years and years and years, and we're pulling in ideas from, how do you attack this family of defenses? How do you do it in broad strokes before you get down to like pretty granular levels? Like, that's how that starts. What type of defense am I playing against? How do I play against them? And what this person said, and I think you see it in just like the little tiny evolutions that they have from season to season, that Vic knows his own history and how teams are going to attack him better than any defensive coach this person had ever worked with before. And so it's a lot of subtleties in between what you think you're going to get and what you're going to get. But in that subtlety is why it's hard to figure out the right plan for how you want to attack him. And so I just think that, again, it's just how hard it is to play against. Like, the Rolodex coverages, like, all right, it's third down. What are you getting from those umbrella looks? You're getting 32% man, 32% man, 20% cover 3, 20% quarters, 20% cover 6.
It's the worst.
Good luck. Good luck. And so
Yep.
I just think he is so good at creating like a suit of armor for his defense, and just making it really, really hard for you to find where the little vulnerabilities are in that it's a slog for any offensive coach that's going to have to play against this guy week to week.
What you just said with those percentages, that's literally how like a lot of third down breakdowns go. All right, it's third and medium, 3rd and 3 to 6. Okay, where are the main staple calls? Okay, we'll write it down. Paul Chris used to just hand crank it right on the sheet and then make copies and give it to all of us when I was Wisconsin, because he barely knew how to use a computer anyways. And then, and then as it gets more high tech, shoot, I could look at the entire league. I can look at specific against opponent. Like, I wish I had the technology I had now when I was in the league. It's unbelievable. It would have made my job so much easier. But that's what it is. I think I can be guilty of it too. And I think McDonald gets grouped under this. I'll include Jesse Minter here. Anyone in that kind of too high scheme, as we just kind of broad swaths of it, is that, it's quarters and they rotate down to cover 3. But when they do it, why do they do it? What are they doing it against? When do they isolate? When do they cheat the safety over your one receiver? They might not do that against us, because you go, okay, every 3rd and 3 and 6, they're running cover 3 buzz, and then they run cover 2 a little bit, and then they run a little cover man. I'm just making coverages up. But then, okay, they play us, and it's 3 buzz, but then the safety's cheated. Or they rotate late, or they're not rotating against this motion. And by the time we adjust or realize what they're doing, the game's already halfway done, and we better have a lead, because otherwise it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter. How Fangio uses, remember when he was in Denver and they didn't really have the horses, and he was like, I'm going to run a bunch of man coverage because I have Patrick Surtain. He was like, he just changed what he called, because he was like, I got to change my personnel, and then that's what I got to do. And then now he's like, all right, I can use Quinyon Mitchell this way. I can use Cooper DeJean this way. All right, my corner 2 is not that great. All right, so we can cheat the safety over that way. So technically it's cover 3, but really if I just, write it down on a sheet of paper, do a data on it, but I have to note the little adjustments that he has, just like an offensive play call adjusting one route. That's what he does. So it's, the same 4 or 5 calls. Then he has these little micro adjustments week to week, situation to situation. So everything you just brought up is just the game plan heaviness, specificity. I could talk. That just comes from his game plan. You feel it definitely in the playoffs, especially that Super Bowl run. It was like every week, all right, we're going against the Packers. They did this certain thing to break their protection, and he's really good at finding the fish. Who's the weakest offensive lineman? All right, we're going to attack that guy over and over. Is the back really bad in protection? We're going to attack that guy over and over and over, even if we're not a quote unquote heavy blitzing team. So yeah, it's just being able to adjust his game plan from his kind of shell, his core concepts is just so good. But if you turn, this kind of been my philosophy in football, is like, you always want to make everything like a triple threat, like a rock, paper, scissors. I can do one of 3 things to attack you from this look. Fangio's got 5 always. And that's like, you rob those percentages, and it's like, could be 3, could be quarters, could be kind of 3 with man principles, could be 6, off of that. And that's what I think Macdonald does great. I call his scheme kaleidoscopic because it's the same picture and it just changes slightly on you. Fangio's the kind of the king of that, or I guess the elder version, the OG version of that too. And of course, I think we're kind of living in that world right now. So
yeah, we're living in in terms of like broader structural stuff, we're still living in his world. And I think that, like you said, to me, it all gets back to the subtleties between those things that you're talking about and just how much beauty lives in those subtleties. And I think he does that as well as anybody. All
right. So I'm torn between two. I might let you have Flores because I want to stick with my board. I'm going to go with Jesse Minter next. And this is tough. This is actually tough for me because I'd always mention this in draft shows. When I know I'm doing a draft, I open up that Google Doc and I just throw out the names that first come to mind. And it was like Minter got up there way earlier in my brain than I would have expected. I was like, brain, really? No, but with Minter, it's just everything we're talking about with Fangio, with McDonald. It's hyper specific game plans from the same shell. It's understanding personnel. It's getting away with all right, we don't have the best corners, but actually no, those corners seem pretty good because they're coached so well. And what stood out to me so much was in the Charger schemes the last couple of years was that how many bodies are around the ball. And just anytime the ball gets completed underneath, there's 3 defenders right around it. They were susceptible. The one weakness with the Chargers defense, and it's kind of nice if you're into quarterback props, was they allowed a lot of scrambles. And it was because their guys were so good in coverage and going, okay, look at the route combination. We're passing this up. Oh, the quarterback's running. we got to rally the quarterback. It was kind of the double-edged sword of being so hyper-specific and so hyper-game plan. But he's earned my respect so much. I mean, I was able to, just because of knowing his background, but Michigan was so relevant when he was calling plays for them too. So I kind of got like an early tip on Minter. And even then with Michigan, watching that college football playoff on when they won the championship, I mean, just anything Washington ran, anybody ran, they were just teeing off on all that. I know that's college, but then continued to the NFL where, yeah, they would kind of lose what Charles McDonald would say, the blue chip battle sometimes, but he maximized what the talent that they did have. And he's earned a lot of respect. I'm very excited to see what he does in Baltimore. I love the Doyle hire. I love the offensive line coach hire. So I know that's nothing to do with this, but as a play caller and a play designer and a game plan schemer, he's up there for me, and that's why I'm going to tab him. Even if this is tough, actually, because Flores was pretty hard to leave off, but I'm really liking what I've seen from Minter the last 2 years. I'm excited to see him with the Ravens personnel.
I think the point about maximizing talent is it does a lot of lifting for me here. Like the fact that you look at it and they're down near the bottom of the league in defensive spending over the last couple of years, and they're still a top 10 defense. It's the ability to create that kind of unit without those field tilting players. Khalil Mack is good. I think Thule had such a nice season last year, and I think he's a really fun player to watch. Tyre Tart justifiably got paid a lot of money because of what he was doing for them. Dan Henley's very exciting. And I like that they have flexibility at corner, even if they don't have star power. Like, there's a lot of things to like about how they've built it, but they do not have those field tilting players defensively. Yep. And I think on defense, it's almost more important to have them than it is on offense. Again, I think you build through your stars on defense in a really specific way.
Have to give chip help to this guy. Can't throw to this guy.
Again, how are you tilting things? Like, how are you changing the math? And like, they just don't have that many math changing guys defensively, even if I like a lot of the players that they have. And to be able to build a top 10 defense out of that kind of group is just so impressive. And I think that the 2 things that stick out to me, like, I think the creativity on early down, they play with such light boxes. Like, it is such a fundamental part of how they're going to play, and watching the layers of complexity for how they're going to live with that, where it's like run pressures, it's like certain stunts. Like, they know, like, if we're going to live this way, we got to have 20 answers to this problem. And I think that their run defense isn't great, but it's good enough for them to play the way they want to. And it's good enough because of how creative he is. And then the thing that really stuck out to me this year is they really did crank up the creativity on defined passing situations this year.
Yes.
When you look at some of the cover zero stuff, some of the bluff stuff, like, they were 3rd in the league in success rate when blitzing. So it's McDonald is like the gold standard, and then he is in that same general range. And I think that really does speak to his understanding of like how to attack people situationally. And like, it's similar to the McDonald conversation, and that's the core stuff you're doing. And like the way the thing is structured is so good and gives people problems. But now what are you doing to be on the attack situationally? I think that you really did see the Chargers and Jesse kind of like creep into that sort of territory last year more than his first year as a coordinator.
Absolutely. And these teams, they use these. It's just a common creeper from these too high looks is where they blitz the Mike linebacker and drop one of the ends. And how Fangio is the king of it. I'm excited to see how Jim Leonard uses it actually in Buffalo. Jim Leonard almost got my first time play caller nominated. Like if there's any first time play caller, he was the one that I would have nominated if we went to like
two
top
guys
20.
For me that have never done this, but I would love to see them on this list next year are Jim Leonard and Declan Doyle. Those are the two guys where if we did this a year ago, it would be so much fun for us and for the league if they would be in this conversation a year from now.
And Leonard's his own thing. And I can't repeat this enough, guys, is Jim Leonard is a lot of what the meta of college football was maybe about 5-6 years ago was copied from Jim Leonard, which was copied from Rex Ryan, but it was kind of a new age kind of thing, a version of it. But that's what Kirby Smart and the Saban guys, that's who they were studying and who they're like, hey, can you come help us? And then everyone copied Kirby, which I thought was so funny. It was like, it's Jim in Wisconsin, but he's such a modest guy. I can see he's not going to be a self-promoter or anything like that. So I'm so curious. I actually think the Bills personnel lines up actually decently for what he wants to do. Like it's actually, I'm very excited to see all that, but knowing how to attack protection rules, that's what these guys are so good at. So they don't have to blitz like crazy, like the guy I'm sure we're about to talk about, but even it's a different thinking. It's like, I know your guys' rules. Flores will go, I'm going to attack it every single down. Wow, these guys are like snipers. They're like 3rd and 7, got to have. All right, here it comes. Here comes our little designer. Here comes our little thing that's going to work. Like their hit rate on these things are going to work. So it's fun talking about all these guys kind of in unison because it's kind of, really the top 3 guys kind of are cut from the same cloth as far as kind of how they attack defenses and attack offenses, I should say.
Yeah, I think that to me, it's a cool, like, I think that this is very overly simplistic, but I think that McDonald and then, the fact that Jesse kind of comes from that world, you have the general structural benefits of like what the Vic Fangio defense looks like. Mm-hmm. Like if you look at what the Ravens were doing 8 years ago and you look at what Mike McDonald does now, the Seahawks led the league in too high pre-snap too high looks. The Seahawks led the league. That's new, right? Like that is a new thing for like that world. But the blitz stuff is all like Rex Ryan DNA from like 15 years ago. So that's like the Seahawks have done this incredible job of like using the meta when it comes to how we're using our resources and like bodies. But now where we have the same blitz DNA that those Rex Ryan defenses had, and they're merging those two things together.
Yes.
And that's why it feels so safe and so dangerous at the same time. Yeah. And I think that is and Jesse again kind of comes from that same place. And I think you're getting a lot of those same benefits.
Just as like Ben Johnson's offense is like a merger of some Shanahan principles and Air Coryell stuff and West Coast stuff as well. It's kind of it's an NFL offense. It's like, it's the baby of all the trees and everything. That's what these guys kind of are, because it's the merger of Monty Kiffin, safe, cover 2. We're going to run the same every snap. You have to beat us, and we're going to have really good players, and we're going to highlight them. And then the Rex Ryan stuff. And it was just like, all right, let's merge these worlds until we get to the I can't emphasize enough. 15 years ago. So yeah, when my dad was with the Bears, about 15 years ago, it was Rex Ryan did his stuff. Dick LeBeau did his stuff. Everybody else, you kind of knew what you're getting. I want to cover 2, some quarters in there, like some fancy blitzes or some designers. But then now everybody has Rex Ryan blitzes. Everybody has Dick LeBeau blitzes, and they run them all the time. And so, yeah, I think that what these guys are doing is that merger of the Monty Kiffin cover 2 stuff, philosophy of safe, sound. We know what our coverage is. We're going to rotate to what we need to with the kind of funky designer blitzes. But I just did
Speaking of funky designer blitzes.
Funky blitzes. I know there's so many good transitions there. Go, Robert.
Flores you could easily have him ahead of Minter if you go back and forth on it. It's truly like you said, pick your flavor, right? Yeah. Like, it's what do you want? And I think the only reason that I'm a risk averse person. That is my general wiring, is that I'm a risk averse person.
I got you to play craps for 10 minutes once.
I'm a risk averse person. And so I am, I like to gamble a little bit, but it's funny. Like I played blackjack with my wife once and she sat down we lost all of our money. Like she put $50 down. She lost it in 5 minutes. She goes, why would anyone do this? And so I do see a more pronounced version. Like I'll still have a good time, but overall I am a fairly risk averse person in terms of how I approach a lot of things. And so the only reason that like Flores maybe drops 1 or 2 spots lower for me compared to where it might be for somebody else is And I think it's overstated how aggressive it is, especially in passing situations, right? It's actually it's less aggressive in those situations. But I do think because it's so extreme, there are more things to pick up on and more things I think to consciously attack. That's like the only reason it's one small half step down compared to some of the other guys defensively I might prefer. But if you just think about the creativity, how hard it is to even start preparing because it's unlike anything else, right? Like if this idea of you start because you can bucket things, right? Like, all right, I know where this thing comes from. So here's the bucket I'm drawing from. Here's how I'll start figuring out how do I want to attack this. It doesn't come from buckets. Like it's its own thing. And so I think that the specificity and just the extreme nature of it is very good and has its drawbacks, but it is such a singular defensive vision that it's not just a novelty. Like they were fourth in EPA per dropback again this year, despite dealing with all of those injuries that they dealt with up front. And you felt how different the defense was when Grenard was banged up, when Van Ginkel was banged up, and when those guys got back, they were just as dangerous as they've ever been. So I just think that again, like he's like an auteur. Like there's no one like him, and like it's like how you can watch. Like you watch I watched like a Steven Soderbergh movie, and like I know it's him, and like you watch the Vikings, and you feel every single bit of it is him, and I think that the fact that that's not just authorship and ownership, but you see it in the results. Like there really is nobody like him.
That's what's fun. It's not just like, and I know. And fans, and I understand this, like maybe, okay, you watch your team, then, okay, oh, here's the Vikings on a night game. And it's just like, watch out for Brian Flores' craziness and funkiness. It's like, there's results to it. It's not like, it's not blitzing just the blitz or faking blitzing just the fake blitz. Like it makes offenses do the hard things over and over, which to me is just dropping back and passing. Like the way to beat a Brian Flores defense is you have to have a quarterback in an offense that can just straight drop back and run real old school pass concepts, because play action can get killed because how they pass things off and how they attack it. They're extremely good, or he's extremely good at what I've heard defenses coaches call find the fish, which is they make the little tip, who's the worst pass protector. And this is kind of funny, is the guy that makes me think of this is Jahmyr Gibbs. Because when you and I were working together, that was my knock on Jahmyr Gibbs. Oh, he's not great in pass protection. I'm a little limited on that. Got so much better. And then the Vikings this year abused it. They just kept blitzing him and blitzing him and blitzing him. And because he had to take a lot, I think because Montgomery was hurt or banged up, Gibbs had to be out there for every snap. And you could tell he was getting worn down. Like, I got to take another guy, like another block to the chin.
The interior blitzes during that game. I mean, they were just spamming it over and over and over again. And I think that he does. They'll pick at something if they see it. They're like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like he's willing to do that. And I think the other element that he's done such a good job of, and again, to me, it's like, where are you toying with expectations, right? Like where are you doing something that, all right, you expect me to do this, so I'm going to do this instead. His ability, and this has become more prevalent throughout the league, but I think he was really one of the people who spearheaded over the last couple of years, is just the idea of just inverting downs, right? Like I'm super aggressive with the run pressures on early downs, because if I can create negative or stalemate plays, and now you're in 2nd and 10, that's when you actually can get a little bit less aggressive and a little bit more conservative. But if it's 2nd and 8, it's 2nd and 9, it's 2nd and 10 consistently against this team, you've already lost. Like you are playing into the way he wants to play the game consistently. And so I think his ability to do that, where it's like, I play this very specific way and I'm going to lure you into the trap of playing into it the way I want you to. He's very, very good at that.
These guys, and I'll include McDonald here, Minter and Fangio, they understand what the common beaters are. Like if I'm going to run these certain things, if I run cover 0 100 times, I'm going to know what offenses are how they're going to try and beat it. But you can say that over and over, they got us there because that's the one way we beat us. These coaches, and I'm Flores and all the other guys that are from a different tree, they're willing to go, okay, well then how do I beat the beater? How do I throw a changeup off of that? And that's the thing with Flores. It's not that, okay, yeah, he blitzes and does a lot of cover 0. Well, then the cover 0 has zone rules. These guys pass stuff off. Cover 0 traditionally is just man and just, all right, launch it, beat 1-on-1. Now that gets taken away. Okay, now the whole gash or be gash is now gash or, maybe be gashed, but the quarterback still has to read it right. And you also have the right route combinations called as opposed to just verticalness. So like those little things, it's like you just make everything just that touch harder. Make the quarterback hold the ball quarter second longer. Make the offensive line protect a quarter second longer, and then good things will happen because it's gonna pop. The best offenses will get you, but 20 of the offenses in the league, 25 of the offenses in the league, probably can't handle it.
That's my only, again, if we're talking about where his offenses
crush them. Yes.
That's the difference.
That's it.
That is, if you're going to leave that little sliver of light, those guys are going to find it. And that to me is the differentiator. And that's the only thing that's holding it back when you get to like the truly big time moments in the season.
That's my note on it, is that I've seen it enough where it's the best quarterback / the best protection schemes can gash it. Whether it's Jordan Love in those games, the Justin Herbert game a couple years ago. I know Chargers pass protection is not what you think, but just how Herbert operated against them, but those can get them. And that's actually what lives in my head just a little bit too, is that you can game it. If you have your P's and Q's, you can game it, but it really is like
artists will get him. Like the guys that if you can make hard throws, I think that's where those offenses really do shine through. Like the Staffords of the world.
How many teams have that? And it's like, well,
the teams that are probably going to win the Super Bowl.
Probably teams that are going to face in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yes. So I know. So it's kind of the double-edged sword of it all. But he is the Velociraptor testing the fence. He's just going to keep finding a spot, and he finds that weak spot, and they're going to just go after it.
So we have the same top 7. Now I'm fascinated how it's going to go after this. Because
I have a lot of offensive guys.
I also have a lot of offensive guys. I think mostly offensive guys until the end when I like pick the defensive guy to make a point. But even the offensive guys you have, I almost guarantee you that mine are different. Like I'm
all over the place here. I have 4 offensive guys next. So, and then like number 12 is like, I have no idea where I would go with number 12. I have about 4 guys for that, but I have 4 guys next, and this is hard. Because we are betting for this year, and this might be a little bit warm considering what the other guys have done, but I'm going to go with Brian Schottenheimer from the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, man. Wow. He's doing a lot of good stuff.
All right,
and get some Clayton Adams bump here.
That to me, that was part of the complicating factor to me.
Yeah.
Is that, maybe are we, again, it's so hard to do this. Like how much credit does this guy deserve? And you almost probably, if we were being honest, we probably should have just said, like, you get credit for your offensive staff. You've built the offensive staff, so you get credit for whatever the contributions of that person look like.
Absolutely.
But
I'm shocking myself
hard for me on a couple different fronts, but I completely understand where you're going with it.
I'm shocking myself here. All my Cowboys love has been shocking me, but I just keep coming back to. I even watched like 4 games last week just to go like, am I out turn here? My brain just off.
I just did the same thing.
And I think just because he's his own thing, Schottenheimer runs a greatest hits offense. It's a little bit of everything. It's has some West Coast principles. It's some old school, what I would call traditional NFL stuff. It's some Dak Prescott stuff that he likes, which is really Scott Linehan stuff, which is really Mike Tice stuff, which is really Brian Billick stuff, which is really Denny Green stuff. So like the old school stuff. It's just he knows how to get the most out of his guys. Guys are all, it's very sound, the scheme, and maybe that's because it is a greatest hit, so it's all been distilled down. There's some interesting twists where I can tell he's looking around the league to drop some stuff on. I'll bring up the example of the swing screen off of their chip block. Like, I can tell who's watching the league is who's running that, because I think more teams should use that. It's just an example of how you can kind of just add a twist to like some staples. I think the use of tempo, he's able to change it, and I think the smarter play callers are leaning in towards that, and I think he will. It's maybe just because he is such a grab bag. That's what I like it, but it's all sound to me. And yes, I will admit, Clayton Adams' run game and how well the offensive line played does. There is a part of that has to get weighed here, because Adams is legit. And now I've seen in 2 spots how legit his stuff is. But man, he's just really earned a lot of my respect, Schottenheimer. I'm extremely high on this offense. Last year, we haven't done our top 10 offensive show, but I did Mina's last week. And I had him as my number 1, like them and the Rams. And it's just, I keep trying to talk myself away from it, and I just keep coming back. There's stats, there's philosophy, the personnel of it all. But I just like the scheme. It's got enough old school stuff and new wrinkles. And I think the old school stuff is good because I think that's actually what's giving these modern defenses some issues, or you can get some advantages from going old school in some ways. When I say old school, I mean like concepts like 99. There's some fullback looks that he uses, straight drop back stuff, just a little mixture of some vertical concepts. So I'm a little shocked by this, and I can get into the other kind of short list I have here. But man, he's really won me over, Brian Schottenheimer, just as a guy, as a play caller and offensive mind. Like he just keeps rising my brain.
I love, even when you go back, you can go all the way back to the first moment when obviously the hire happens, and there's the response that I think is justified in the moment, right? The idea that like we're going to hire a guy that was down the hallway because we know him. Like this has happened so many times with this team, and it's so frustrating. But then you watch the staff he put together, and that was kind of the first time where it's like, all right, this feels different. Like they're seeking out ideas and an identity and a foundation in all these different places. And like, so the staff had never worked together. Really, like so this idea what you're saying of it's a grab bag thing, like they, for the most part, no one on the staff had any previous experience working together. And so I think it took them a little while to hit their stride because of that. When you get into the back half of the season, I think you really see, especially in the passing game, really start to come together. But I think that where they're pulling from, right? Like, so obviously when you have an offensive line coach as your offensive coordinator, it's run game first, and it will always stem off of that. And I think it's a good thing that it stems off of that. But even like the thought of having a Clayton Adams and a Ken Dorsey on the same staff, where now all Ken has to do is worry about like third down drop back stuff, which is a world where if you kind of unleash him there, he can easily do that and be really effective at it.
With a point man that can operate it, with a quarterback that can handle all of it.
It's just
too,
like, it's just like, all right, like it's like, even like the idea of like, I'm trying to think of another good example of this, but where you're hiring a coach who has a very specific strength and the weaknesses matter less because of the role that you're asking them to fill. And so if your offensive coordinator is an offensive line coach, he's not going to have as much experience in, all right, what does the third down plan look like in straight drop back situations? So pairing someone with him who that's what they do better than anything else that they've done as an offensive coordinator, like Ken Dorsey is very smart. Their offensive line coach, Connor Riley, is a college guy. And so he comes from a place in Kansas State where it's a lot of gap scheme, it's varied. And so it's just their ability to kind of pull from all these places and have it feel cohesive, but also dynamic and diverse because their backgrounds are also different. That to me was when you saw the staff be built and then you saw the results, I think that's when you can start getting really excited about it.
When he hired Clayton Adams, I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I really like this stuff. And it was kind of like I forgot about it for about 4 months. And then the season started. I'm like, oh, I should have liked this a lot more. Like, it was like, I didn't really put that together. Maybe because I was just so, I wouldn't say out on Schottenheimer. I was kind of shrugging at it. Like, just kind of like, whatever.
It was so forgettable. It was not exciting. It was like,
it really was.
I was open to the idea that he could be fine because like we don't know all the time, but it was not exciting.
But everyone... His name has been so relevant for so long. I mean, he was Jets OC. I mean, just Georgia time. I mean, he's just been around so long. And I've heard for years what a good head coach he was going to be. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Well, can he call some plays a little bit better? Like, that's how I always thought, like to myself. And then he becomes a head coach. I'm like, oh, he's actually a really good communicator. He's actually really good at handling personalities. Oh, he actually seems like he knows the league really well. Wow, that's just okay. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I'm weighing too much of my own surprise. I don't say surprise, but more like he outkicked my expectations well. And like even right now, or just looking at like DVOA, they were 7th in weighted DVOA last year, the Cowboys offense. I again think they can finish top 3, like, but some things break right, but it's just a lot of those signs.
Right, is a huge part of that.
The
left little things battle. Like that.
Yep, but I mean, you just look at the rest of the roster, and it's just like they have enough depth at the line. The tight end room's great. Love the receiver room. Javonte Williams is my favorite back, but at least this offense, you can tell they're like, hey, just get this hole and go. Like that's the one room. But if you're talking about backup running back being a weakness, and I know the left tackle battle, but they actually have 2 valid candidates. Like that's actually not a lot. Like at least both guys can at least play. I'm not saying how high they can get. They're at least better than warm bodies. So yeah, that'd be the one knock on it. But man, yeah, I kind of surprised myself here, even having him, because I'm excited to talk about the next couple names I have in on offense. And we'll come back to your next pick, probably an offensive guy, right after the break. See you guys in a sec. Okay, I think the name you're about to say was the name I almost wanted, so I'm excited about that.
It's almost like a Lifetime Achievement Award is like diminishes a little bit, but I think he had a somewhat down year last year compared to what I had come to expect from him. But I think when you look at the body of work and just the sheer output of top 5, top 7 offenses, I don't want to forget how good Matt LaFleur is at this job.
That was another name that was number 11 for me. So yes, it was in here.
And again, I think last year, and because I don't want to just default to results, right? Like I don't want to just sort by who had the most efficient offenses and that becomes the best play callers. Like that's, for many reasons, that's not the best way to do it. And I actually think last year specifically, they finished 4th in weighted offensive DVOA last year. The Packers did. The quarterback's shot making went further in dictating that number last year than at any point I can remember for the Packers. Like his pure like contested shot making last year was crazy. Like I still don't think we're talking enough about it. Like just the even sheer, in a loss. You go back and you watch even the Bronco game. And there are some like by design explosives in that game, but before that game came off the rails, they were really doing a great job at undressing that defense. But even in that game, the Giant game was another good example of this. Like there are 4 or 5 games last year where the efficiency, the explosiveness, everything you want from an offense for the Packers was driven by what Jordan Love was doing, not by what the play caller was doing. But I still think that when you look at the creativity that we've seen from him over the years, the ability to consistently scheme up explosive plays, the creativity in the run game too, like them having like this kind of top 8 to 10 run game pretty much every single year by success rate without dominant offensive lines is, I think we underrate that. Like it's just that ability to kind of be the engine of the offense where you're not, Jordan Morgan was a 1st round pick, but you don't have all of these like super highly pedigreed guys along your offensive line. You're kind of just getting by with mid-round picks, modest
They're
investments.
All built the same. They all look exactly the same. It's unbelievable.
And we this has been a point of contention. You know, when I'm talking to Derek last week, he's like, that group is not good. And like we have to worry about how good not good that group is. And I was like, they'll probably be fine. And I think I default to that because it's always been the case. But the fact that they've been able to build these top 5 offenses with offensive lines that are just like, they'll probably be fine. Yeah. Like I think that his ability, LaFleur, is just to consistently lift that entire group over and over and over again. Even if last year I think was a slight step back for them as a whole, I still don't think we should diminish the body of work and what it's been over the last like 5 to 10 years.
Also, and this speaks to really just their whole staff, really one of the best pass protection schemes and soundness out there. You mentioned 5-man getting out, it's just for pass protection. There's always, just noise with that too, but they're the best at dictating, hey, we're just going to have our 5 offensive linemen block. We'll let Josh Jacobs release, even though he's part of the protection, 6-man protection. They check. This is the rules they teach running backs. Anyone wants to know. Check your blitz assignment, chip if you have to, and then release, CCR. So they get to the release part way better with their running backs than anything. And that speaks to understanding scheme, soundness, and everything. I also love his passing game philosophy, which is we are going to launch this thing down the field, which is also leaning into what our quarterback's really good at, but then building the whole offense out of it and going like, okay, let's just lean into big play action shot plays. Let's lean into big outbreakers because our quarterback can literally attack all parts of the field. I'm glad we're talking about LaFleur. If I'm like, again, cards on the table, I feel like we're pretty open about all this stuff. He was a name I was embarrassed that I didn't have on my first kind of rough draft off of my brain. And then he was the one I was like, oh shoot, Matt LaFleur. And I threw it into he was going to get drafted at some point by me if you hadn't taken him here. I think the heat has
come off of him a little bit. I think that there has been I think it's turned a little bit, and I think that it's gone a little bit too far. And the other thing I'd say, you mentioning the outbreakers, and that's the other part of, if you look at, because they're trying to scheme up all these explosives, right? And it's like you watch those elements of the passing game, but there's always like a one-on-one answer.
Yep.
Like every concept, while it's designed to be explosive, has a more safe answer built within it, even if it is a more down the field option. And so I just think that if you look at it like left to right, there's always an answer available to the quarterback, even in what is a pretty aggressive scheme. And so when you combine that with just, again, the creativity, the angles created in the run game, all of that, I just think there's so much good, even if maybe we're not quite as excited about Matt LaFleur as we were 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, it's good. And also he has the right mindset of what offenses should be right now, which is the run game is a jab. The defenses are really good at tackling. We probably won't get explosives as much as we should. Using creative, like Jaden Reed in the run game and others in the run game, kind of some cool stuff there. Using all your players for all positions or all assignments, I should say, and then just a vertical passing game. And that's and changing up pass protections. Like they do as good a job as anybody of using every type of play action available to them, which I think everyone should be doing. So glad we get to kind of give LaFleur a shout out because the production's there. The quarterbacks have gotten better. You can say whatever you want about receiver rotations or whatever. It's like, no matter what, this offense just keeps clicking. And when it cooks, it's one of the most fun offenses to watch. It's always fun to rewatch the Packers because their stuff's really sound. So I always kind of appreciate what they kind of get out there.
Was that pick 9?
That was pick 9.
Okay.
Which is German for no. All right. Pick 10. All right. I'm torn between 2. I'm going to go with the gut instinct here. I'm going Liam Coen for the Jags.
He was 10th for me. He was 10th. Okay. He was literally 10th on my list.
He does the good stuff. He does a lot of the good stuff, and that's really what it is. Him and his staff, some of the best situational designs. I would say red zone, third down. I know it sounds niche, but when you watch it week in, week out, it's like, yeah, this stuff's really good. Doing some of the hard stuff, which we saw early season woes, but especially post Jacoby Myers trade, got to see that passing game click. A legit top 5, top 6 pass game metrics wise.
Third in EPA per dropback over the second half of the season for next gen.
And it was real. And that was the frustrating part about the beginning of the year and with the hospital ball discussion was the scheme's working. The guys just got to execute, whether it was quarterback or the receivers, they got to just execute. And I think the Bengals game was maybe the game that really was like, okay, you guys are legit. And it turned out the Bengals defense wasn't great, but just watching it, even O-line, the O-line's not extremely talented. And that's still something I think will dictate this season in 2026 and how high they can go or how far they can go. But he makes the most of it. The run game fell off in the second half of last year, but also it was like they're trying to do some good stuff. The screen game's really good. Highlighting guys, even Travis Hunter, who only knew 5 plays in the playbook, just getting him into good spots. And really just once Jacoby Myers traded, I know there's jokes and the production and everything, but you got to see everybody slot into roles that made sense for him. Okay, BTJ, you're not great on in-breakers. You're not trusting yourself right now. Outbreakers and vertical. Okay, we'll get you on that. Also, the play design of packaging 2 fully different plays together, which is what Sean McVay does so well in Stafford. They got to a lot of legal shift penalties early in the year, and they tightened down on it as the season went along. That's the hard thing to do. And the fact that they were trying to do that month 1 in this regime, rather than just going like nothing but easy buttons and nothing but training wheels. They're like, no, we're going to make you guys learn the offense. That's really encouraging of what this offense could grow into. Because and when I say packaging 2 full plays together, I've talked about this last week, but typically when you package plays together, alert, kill, whatever you want to say, it's a run play and a pass play or 2 different plays, but it's the same formation and same look. They are truly just going like under center, 2x2 condense. Oh, we got the look we want. Now we're in shotgun 3x1 and we got a motion and it's this, and they do it all. And the play clock's winding down every single time. That's really hard to get to, and they got better as the season went along. But I think Coen's the real deal. I love the passing game concepts, the variety that they throw in there, the designer plays they throw in there. Trevor's playing better because he had more confidence in what they were calling. He does a lot of good stuff, and I hope the O-line's good enough and the run game shores up this year because then you could see maybe reach even a new high, which is really, really exciting.
What I think is so cool is that it's not exactly the Ben Johnson discussion, but I think it's adjacent to that where we saw, so in Tampa, like that offense in Tampa 2 years ago is one of the more fun offenses I can remember watching in the NFL because it was all the stuff that we love to see, like the run game creativity, the screen game. Like it just was, it was very like play caller centric, like the success of that offense. And they built it through the offensive line. The offensive line was the best part of that group. And so we're going to build it through the run game and the offensive line. Well, this offense is very different when it comes to the personnel. Now you have an offensive line where you're just trying to get by. So they still had a top 5 offense by the end of the year per a lot of metrics, but it expressed itself and manifested in a very, very different way. And I think that's what's so cool is that they're obviously the DNA of those offenses is the same, but what makes them great is very different. And I think that to me speaks to the quality of coaching that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
And I just loved being able to coax out of Trevor that version of Trevor Lawrence that I always wanted to see, which was just more aggressive, right? Like, and if you look at the percentage of dropbacks, 10 plus air yards last year, he went from like below average to, I think it was like 41.5% over the second half of the season, which was a top 5 rate. And think about like what you want out of Trevor Lawrence. You want that like laser show intermediate to deep passing game. And the game that really sticks out to me is the Arizona game where they have Brenton Strange on like these deep corner routes. And like, it's just a lot of like big vertical, like switch release type stuff where we're going to throw these big posts and big corners and all of these deep in breakers, and like watching Trevor throw those on rhythm and that be the entire construction of the offense, throws between 10 and 18 yards in rhythm, back foot hit the ground, let those things rip. That's the version of Trevor Lawrence I've always wanted. And that's exactly what the design of the offense was in the second half of the season. And so his ability, again, to kind of find that version of it that was different than what he had done before, but was catered to the offense and the players that he has now, and the results and the quality are the same as they were in Tampa. I just think that's incredibly impressive.
You asked me years ago, you're like, what do you think Trevor's ceiling is? And like right now, God, man, it feels forever. We've been talking about Trevor Lawrence.
It has been.
It has been like literally, I think since we started. So I think even with Trevor is I kind of got to see, which was always and I think now I consider him like, okay, what I call tier 2. Like, I think that's where he'll sit in, not as like those tier 1 elite upper echelon guys, but that next tier, which is someone you could easily win a Super Bowl with, is that it was supercharged Matt Ryan. Like and where did Matt Ryan live? 10 to 20 yards. Just, I mean, I liken my basketball comparison for Matt Ryan was Chris Paul. Just those 18 footers. He's going to hit him off the elbow. 18 footers. Same. It's hard, but if you do it, God, it could be juicy. And now they have the personnel, Parker Washington, we have to give him a shout out as well, is that they have the guys and now the offensive scheme that I think that all aligns perfectly. It's different than, and this has stuck with me so much. Matt Harmon said this about last year when with Kyler and Petzing and Marvin Harrison Jr. It was so frustrating. He goes, sometimes they are just not fits for each other. And I was like, you're right. Sometimes things are just not right. It's square peg, round hole. As much as we want to hammer it in and make it fit, it just doesn't. While this case, it's like, I think this is all coalescing very nicely, and I think it can blend very nicely, and they're going to be a nice jump this next year.
I also think that speaks to the tiers of play callers, right? I think for some play callers, you can run into those dead ends where it's just like, this isn't going to work. Like I'm good at this. Like I think that there's a chance that the Lions just go supernova this year, like based on the receiving talent they have and like how it fits the way that Drew wants to coach, all that stuff.
O-line,
But I think that when you get to a certain tier of play caller, those dead ends don't exist. Right. Like I'm going to figure this out. Like whatever you give me, I'm going to figure it out on the other side. And I don't think it's crazy to say that like in 2 years of doing this, Liam Coen probably belongs in like that tier of play callers. Yeah. So
he's up there.
I had him at 10 in mine.
Okay.
I'm going to stick in the AFC South. I'm going with Shane Steichen.
Okay. So he would have been my first, like, kind of off the board, if that makes sense. Like, but he was 13 for me. But a guy I'm glad we're talking about. Put it that way.
There are probably 2 other offensive coach. There's one other offensive coach that I would have put in here just as like
throw him out here. We're
to make a point.
Here, so
Clint Kubiak was in my top 12.
He's higher up there than I would have expected. I put it that way. Yeah.
I had him as 11.
He's an honorable mention for me.
I just think he did a remarkable job. Like if you look at the down-to-down passing consistency of that team, some of the situational stuff, like some of the one-off designery things they're doing with JSN, like I was so impressed. The only reason I don't have him maybe even a little bit higher is just he did it for 1 year at this level, right? Like the New Orleans is such a strange season, but Clint Kubiak is the other one I would have said. I just think that watching what that offense was for the Colts in the first half of the season and just like so many little tiny things that I thought were so good, where the amount of motion that they used last year was just completely removed from like anything we had ever seen from Shane in the past. Like the offenses that he had before were just much more static. There was a reason for that in Philly. Like that's the way they wanted to play. But when you watch what the Colts were doing, like, so in the first half of last year, they were, I think it was second in the NFL in success rate when using some sort of motion in the first over the first half of last season. And there were so many little things where it's like, we're going to switch the number count right before the play happens, where it's like, all right, well, now Tyler Warren's going to just quick out motion. Now he's the number one receiver. We're putting one defender in a bind. We're making it easy on the quarterback. We're going to go 3-by-1 to 2-by-2 right before the play happens. It's just like a little thing that you're now having to deal with. Because we're creating that little bit of extra space, I know I'm going to get Josh Downs isolated on this linebacker. This is exactly where it's happening. I felt he was so good with just little tiny levers, whether it was formation, personnel, motions, feeding the offense to the quarterback in a really efficient way. And that to me is what this is about. Like, if you can have the most efficient offense in terms of like success rate down to down in the NFL, and one of the more efficient offenses in terms of success rate down to down in the last decade, over the first half of last season with Daniel Jones.
We were getting the nickname status like through that first 2 months. Like Charles and I kept going like, I think this is real.
I think he's just, I just love his ability to, again, just like little tiny things that are making the game so easy, because this is the one matchup we're circling on this play. And I'm going to create that matchup within this play. And their skill position players have such unique skill sets that his ability to do that for each one of those guys individually, where it's like, these are the types of plays where I can do this with Tyler Warren. These are the types of plays where I can do this for Josh Downs. These are the types of plays I can do this for Michael Pittman. And these are the types of plays I can do this with Alec Pierce. And understanding how to construct those scenarios for each of those guys individually over the first half of the season, I just thought he did a remarkable job. And again, to me, it speaks to, he's done it in different ways. Like, it looks so much different in Philly than it does here. It looks so much different in Herbert's rookie year than it does now. And so I just think he is a really, really good offensive coach. And I don't think that the first half of last season was a mirage in showing us that.
There's always been, Mike, why, even before last year, which is so funny because I finally sold my Colts stock. And it was like, after a couple months, I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. You gotta be. I didn't do an apology pod. No, I was, it's just, he's a Norv Turner guy. And so like a lot of those old school schemes, if there's kind of a common theme with some of these guys, it's like they're the ones willing to attack vertically. But that doesn't mean that's all he's got in his bag, or all he's got in his, his bag. Is like, look at when Gardner Minshew had to play for him and they almost made the playoffs. It was RPO heavy. So, I mean, they ran every RPO under the sun because they're like, this is how we have to operate. We're going to run the ball and run RPOs. All right. Then Anthony Richardson's in there. It's like, all right, that's why it's some staticness. I mean, I guess that was part of it. But then we're going to be very vertical, and we're going to have the QB run game in there. And, Hurts was Hurts with the Eagles. But then now you saw Daniel Jones become that trigger man. And now I have to run a lot. Now I have to didn't take a lot of sacks usually compared to what he usually was throwing. Daniel Jones was ripping throws over the middle, which is something he's not really been a guy that does that. And it's because he had comfort in what's getting called. And it was all real. Like it was very sound. It's creativity, even though it's kind of old school stuff. I think how you put it, where they have such a unique skill sets, but like, I think the Rams game was the one that stood out to me. They ran like sail, which is the outbreaker, the corner route, but they had like 4 different guys run it throughout the game. So it was like Tyler Warren got one in the red zone, Alec Pierce got one, and then Downs got one. But it was like so many different guys got the same route, but because they're just running the same play call, but the window dressing, how they splash the water is so different that it makes defenses' heads pop. So I'm glad that you went with Steichen, because say what you want about how they handle quarterbacks or team building, whatever. But as far as calling a freaking game plan and designing stuff, he's really good. And that's where he should get credit for that. You can have warts about other stuff or qualms about other stuff. Calling and designing plays, very, very good. So glad you gave him a shout out. Some other guys, like KOC was on my list or came close. But
one of the first guys off.
It's hard. It was very hard for me. Like, technically he's in my top 12. Like, so I would have, if we had the same picks, I would have taken him. But, there's just, I appreciate red zone designs, everything. I think he can get away from the run game a little too early, but also that's part of, he never had the run game to get to until last year, where he had like a top 10-ish run game last year. So kind of, I'm bullish on the Vikings this year, and him, the Cowler fit, even if it's not perfect, I liken it not square peg round hole. It's like square peg rectangle hole. Okay, we got to get this to work. But KOC design wise, he also has an offensive philosophy. I like how aggressive he can be, for better or for worse. I really like. And
Spags, I just wish the results were a little bit better.
A little bit better.
At this point, like,
stats are great.
They were
stats are great.
The stats are always like, it's exciting, but even when you look back at like 2024, and I think the 2024 season for O'Connell this year reshapes it a little bit. Like the idea that like a lot of his reputation had been burnished because of what they did with Sam Darnold. And then the fact that Sam Darnold can come in, and the Vikings were 10th in passing success rate in 2024. And I think we looked at that and we were like, oh man, who could possibly have done this with Sam Darnold? And then last year, the Seahawks were third. And so now it's like, oh, well, it kind of reframes a lot of that. And it like they were the Vikings in 2024. Like we treat that offense as like this hyper explosive, like, you know, just man, look at what they were doing. Like they were 12th in passing DVOA that year.
Yes.
They were 12th. And so
I thought they were like third. And my brain remembers them as like third. Like, I don't know. Why was it the Justin Jefferson 98-yarder? Like, you know, like what I know that's the stuff that shapes my brain too.
Quality plays into that a little bit, but at the same time, it's like, it's not like what they were dealing with 2 years ago was so bad that it's like, man, who could possibly have schemed around this? Especially when we've seen other guys we've talked about have better results with offensive lines that are just as good, if not a little bit worse. So I guess he was just off to me for that reason. Just like the actual results have not quite been as good as a lot of the other guys. Like Liam Coen has more top 10 offenses in 2 years as a play caller than Kevin O'Connell has ever had in
comparable
his entire time there. Yes, exactly.
Yes, and lesser weapons. Even if they have okay weapons now, lesser weapons. Anything with Justin Jefferson on top is going to be better weapons. Very excited about the Juwan Jennings signing, by the way. I know you would appreciate that too.
Those three guys, and then their offensive line being healthier this year. Like there's a chance the NFC North is just a snake pit. It's awful. I'm
dreading that preview show. I'm probably going to have you on for it, so get ready. But that
I'm just going to be like, for an hour and a half. That's going to be my 9-8
or 10-7 for all of them, and just say, hey, we got close enough. So yeah, KOC is the idea of KOC. I think I'm so glad you looked at the stats too, because every time I look, I'm always like, you were 18th that year.
Yeah.
You were 16th in that year. I know stats are just one part of the picture, but it's a lot easier to say this guy's top 10 when the offenses are top 10 every year, as opposed to 16th, 18th, all over the place. So Spags was another one because I just respect him. Lou Anarumo was another one. Speaking of Colts, or just game playing, he was like 16th for me.
What do you think about Vance Joseph? Was Vance Joseph on your list?
Vance Joseph was on my list.
Yeah, Vance Joseph was on my short list as well.
17th. Yeah, Kellen Moore was up there as well.
Yep, Kellen Moore I think should be mentioned.
You mentioned Kubiak. If I did have a special teams guy, it'd be Jay Harbaugh from the Seahawks.
Do we want to address the fact that Andy Reid is on neither one of our lists?
I would love to, because he's actually not in my list, but he's like, even on my honorable mentions, he's low on that too. You got to update the scheme. And it's as fair as or not, he's one of the greatest offensive minds ever. It's what have you done for me lately? And that's how I am with him. It's like, and then the fact that he has all these retreads, that's a little scary to me. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that it's kind of, he's doing his own thing right now, and I don't think that's great. And I'm curious. They have a chip on their shoulder, but I'm curious where that takes them this year. Yeah. Where is that chip? Is that chip going to be awesome? Like, or is that chip just going to be, another one of these types of years with a frustrating offense? So, yeah. It's like,
Mike
okay, Kenneth Walker's there. Well, that's what I'm taking at number 12 is Mike McDaniel.
Oh, okay. All right. So you have one more pick.
Yeah, I know. I'm being around the bush with all the honorable mentions before I even get to my pick. But Mike McDaniel. So you reference, hey, KOC has offensive line woes, and they can't. Well, Mike McDaniel's had offensive line woes. Like, I know I've talked about Patrick Paul a lot, and Aaron Brewer is pretty dang good, but it wasn't like it was always like that. And they still are churning out top 8, top 5, top 4 offenses with a quarterback that might not even win the job in Atlanta this year in Tua. That he was able to rip off his offense. Yes, the receiving talent matters, but how they were unlocked matters as well. Also, if you do something that everyone else copies, that has to give you some points, and that's his use of motion and some of his run game designs. I actually want to do, because I'm pretty high on the Chargers this year. Oh God, of course you're on the pod when I say that.
I've got some decisions to make as we get into the season about how I'm gonna approach or address this.
Oh, I know. Every time I talk about the Chargers, I just like have PTSD with talking with you about them. So, but he has shown too is just the run game stuff. I think it's still kind of, everyone's talking about Justin Herbert and how the footwork of Justin Herbert's going to do this, and it's like, yeah, Justin Herbert's going to definitely benefit. But wait until Amari and Hampton, this run game get going, and
1,500 yards from Amari and Hampton.
he's going second round fantasy drafts. I'm like, what are we doing? I just see the boosting the tight ends finally to get some blockers in there. Something you and I have been pounding the table for 6 years. They finally got 2 of them. And Charlie Collar, who you had on, that was a great show, by the way. And David Njoku. Yeah, make sure you guys check that out. So that was really fun. But watching all that stuff is, I want to make it cut up, is that he is doing stuff in the run game that no one else is doing. And it's not just for fun. It's sound, but it's also breaking rules. And it's really giving defenses fits. And I'm going to tweet one play out. So he runs a counter play, and I think it was against the Broncos. And I could be wrong there, but anyways, it was late in the season. And they run, rather than nobody pulls on counter. So typical counter, 2 guys are pulling, a guard and a tight end usually. Could be a guard and tackle. But the tight end and the fullback, Alec Ingold, kind of feigned their action, and then they are the pullers technically coming from the same side. And I know that sounds crazy, like, whoa, or no, I shouldn't say not sounds crazy. It was like, whoa, oh my God, those guys, 2 guys aren't pulling when they should be pulling. You should watch the defense go, what the because they're like they see the action of counter, but then no one pulls. So the linebackers don't know who to key in on, and then boom, it goes out for a 15-yard gain to right. And like just those little tweaks, because that's how he, kind of got his like little niche with Shanahan, was like, hey,
he's a run game coordinator. That's what he was.
And so just the offensive philosophical stuff, like the scheme design, play calling stuff, how he kind of, those years went away from him in Miami. Okay, we can talk about whether that's him as a head coach or a play designer, yada, yada. But I do think he has done a lot of innovative stuff. And I think it's just going to carry over this year with a personnel that actually suits them, I think, better than people are even making out to be. I know Justin Herbert's Justin Herbert, but I just mean run game wise as well. So yeah, Mike McDaniel gets my tip at 12, and very excited to watch this offense this year.
He was on my short list. Like, I mean, he was one of my first guys off. If I had done like a full list of 12, he was right there. I think the 3 guys that I'd write off were him, KOC, and Vance Joseph are the 3 guys that were like just outside of my top 12. Another guy I would throw out, I think that Chris Shula did such a good job last year.
That's another one that made short list for me. Yes.
And you talk about picking out protections, the stunts. Like if we're getting to a place where like how you attack the opposing offensive line, whether it's run stunts, early down run blitzes, simulated, anything you're doing in the blitz world, he's done a really good job of that. And I also think the other thing, when I was talking about defensive coaches that aren't allowing offenses to dictate how the game is going to them based on personnel, he's the person I had in mind.
Yeah.
Where if you look at it, it's all situational. Like if you're 2nd and 7, I don't know where their get back on track lines are, but let's say it's 2nd and 7 is where they dictate, like this is a get back on track situation for the opposing offense. They lead the league in dime snaps in those situations. Cause it's like, well, I don't care.
Yeah.
If you're in 12 personnel on 2nd and 8, like you're going to throw the ball 87% of the time here. Mm-hmm. And so I'm putting 6 DBs on the field. Yeah. Like you are not going to choose how the game is going to go. Yes. The situation is going to choose how I'm going to play this. And I think the Rams did this to me as well as anybody last year. And so if that is something I want to see from more defensive coaches, where it's like, I hold the way the game is going to go in my hands, you don't get to decide. I think that he was one of the guys who did a very good job of that last year in LA.
Yeah. He had a blitz last year. Oh no, actually it was 2 years ago, but he did a blitz that still blows my mind because it played off the motion they were expecting. I want to say they played the Raiders and no boom, I think blitzed, and Rose boom or whatever his face is. It went to Carolina. So as the motion happens, like he triggered on that motion knowing it was coming, and he crossed the formation to do so, which is so funky because defenses have formation strengths too. So to be open to blitz on either side, depending on the motion, but like popped my mind as an offensive guy. So much like McDaniel kind of like retwists or remixes common concepts, Shula is the defensive version, I think, of that. And I don't know how, I thought he would get a job. He's got a nice last name for it. So I don't know how he is as a head coach material, but as a guy that was just like, all right, whatever, you're the DC, he does enough innovative stuff or enough twists on stuff I kind of don't really see that he made my short list as well, just for those reasons as well. I thought they lost because of personnel more than him having a bad play call. I think the corners just got dunked on. It is
they
what
got
it
picked
is.
on. I mean, you look at what they were worth. Like, I mean, Kobe Durant got $4 million in free agency. Like I like Kobe. I like the Kobe. It's one of those things where I like the Kobe Durant signing for the Cowboys, but at the same time, it was time to move on if you were the Rams.
Correct.
And time to upgrade.
Yes,
and
exactly.
so I think he did a great job. And the other name I would throw out is Camp Eli. I thought that he did a really, really good job with the Jags last year.
Camp. So I went like I'm off brain. I just put him at camp. I called him the Italian for a few months. So because John Shipley told me a story. He covers the Jags. That like the first time we ever talked to him, Camp asked him for where he could find a good red sauce at, and I was just like, "You're in Jacksonville." So there's a decent Irish population there. I don't know about Italians. No, but I laughed at that. But no, he talking about situations and designers. One of the best third down play designers. Oh my God. His situational stuff's so good. And every linebacker he's coached has always gotten better. His linebacker group plays the best of their abilities. And that's kind of his shtick, his linebacker play.
He was linebacker coach.
Yeah. So that's another sign of good coaching happening too. So yeah, good shout there. You already mentioned Vance Joseph's, just one of them. I know Sean Payton kind of demoted himself, by I have no idea what to make of Davis Webb and all that. So, I have a story for you after this, by the way. But no, it's like I thought we knocked it out. I mentioned Kellen Moore.
The Texans guys are the only guys where it's just like I don't know what to do with this. Like it's just
That's tough.
They probably do deserve more credit than they get, like as situational play callers, and it's like, but it's also like Chris Burke took over, Matt Burke, excuse me, it took over. Chris Burke is an athletic editor. Matt Burke took over in the, during the season last year. Like it just, again, I'm sure that because they have just all of those banshees over there that we don't give them enough credit, but I still couldn't put them over some of the offensive guys where it's just so overt. Like the impact that those guys are having on the game.
Yeah, I know. Whether that's fair or not, it's not, but they kind of get the Legion of Boom discount or, where it's like, same with the Legion of Boom days. It was like, how much credit can I give these play callers when you're calling two coverages and the players just execute it like great? So it's like, don't overthink it kind of thing, but also you get knocked for not overthinking it. Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I had no idea what to do with D'Amico and Burke because it's like, I respect what they do. Their defense might be the best in the league this year. But yeah, I know it's kind of to get a discount on that. So, all right, we'll run through our top 12. We have McVay at pick 1, Kyle Shanahan 2, Mike McDonald 3, Ben Johnson 4, at evens, Robert at odds, Fangio 5, Vic Fangio, Jesse Minter at 6, Brian Flores at 7, Brian Schottenheimer at 8, Matt LaFleur at 9, Liam Coen at 10, Shane Steichen at 11, and Mike McDaniel at 12. Robert, that was a blast. We're closing it out today. I know you were 1-1 on my board of who I wanted to do this show with.
I sincerely appreciate that. The moment you told me about the idea, I was excited about it.
Happened.
I'm glad we can do this. So, anytime we can make it happen, I'm happy to do it. So hopefully we'll have you on before the end of the summer. We'll make that happen. We already have plans. Great. This isn't a nebulous thing.
I know, right? But really? Yeah. I'm waiting for that text from Beller. No, and also. Maybe have you on for one of the divisional previews. We can do that.
I'm ready.
I feel like the NFC North is always our little baby, so might have to do that again just for old time's sake.
I'm living the NFC North preview 24 hours a day, every single day of my life, so I'll be ready for it whenever you need it.
Bears fans, who are some of my favorites, I'll be open about it, are freaking out there right now. They were mad at I think we did our top 10 offenses and me and I had them at 7 and people were furious.
I can't wait for them to be so mad at me for how I approached this offseason and how I approached the preview part of looking forward to the Bears season. I cannot wait for every Bears fan to just be disappointed in the tone I take about this team this year. I can't wait.
Can't wait. Hopefully I'll try and balance that out. I don't know. We were kind of the Bears podcast last year. I'm trying to cure it. The NFC North is breaking my brain every day. Yesterday was Lions Day in my brain. it was like, ooh, I think the Lions are going to win it this year. 2 weeks ago was the Vikings. I think you can
make any argument you want depending on how you're feeling that morning.
Any argument. Yeah, I can't wait to go over it. It's going to be a great year. Robert, thank you so much for joining me. We're closing out today. We'll be back every Tuesday throughout the season. Make sure to check out Robert Mays and the Athletic Football Show. It's the best. You guys are on 4 times right now.
4 times a week.
Covering everything right now. They're killing it over there. Him, Derek Class, and Dave. All those guys, they are doing a great job as always. I'm Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. That is Robert Mays. You can find him at Robert Mays on social media. Subscribe to us here at Football 301 and the Athletic Football Show as well. I'm fond of that show as well. Make sure to rate both of us make sure to rate us both 5 stars, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Also, big news on our front, the Yahoo Sports NFL YouTube channel is here. So make sure to subscribe to that when you're ready. And we move over there next month with all this great Football 301 content on top of some other great stuff over here at Yahoo. Also, shout out to Game Time. Check out the Game Time app for great prices on tickets. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you, Robert, for joining me. Thank you all for listening. See you all next time.